everyone, and welcome to the special edition of Lotus Unplugged. I Matter 2.0. I'm your host, Srishti Kumari.
And I'm Aruna. Together, we'll guide you through an engaging conversation with our guest, Dr. Aruna Broota, and make mental health a topic that's more approachable, relatable, and inspiring. Because at the end of the day, it's okay to feel, it's okay to seek help, but in today's world, figuring out whom to talk to, whom to trust, and whom to confide in can be really confusing.
And today we have an extraordinary guest joining us. Someone whose name is synonymous with wisdom and compassion, Dr. Aruna Broota ma'am. Dr. Broota is an internationally acclaimed clinical psychologist whose work has inspired generations. She's an MA in psychology, holds a PhD, and is a former professor of clinical psychology at the University of Delhi.
With nearly 4 decades of experience, she has conducted countless workshops on stress management, work-life balance, anger management, and adolescent mental well-being, both in schools and in corporates.
She began her journey as a clinical psychologist back in the 1960s and even had the rare opportunity to work with the legendary Carl Rogers.
Her insights, research, and compassion have touched countless lives across the globe, making her one of the most respected figures in the field of psychology.
We are truly honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much for all this appreciation. Please go ahead.
Let's dive right in. Ma'am, there are so many misconceptions about mental health. What's one myth that you finally wish people would stop believing?
That mental illness and mental health, any kind of maladjustment in your environment is equal to being mad. I think this is what I confront every day, every minute. And people refuse to get over this stereotype. And I wish we would take mental health more seriously and talk about it and not shy about it.
So absolutely, ma'am, I think it's really something that we as a society should work upon on making mental health something that's not as stigmatic as it is currently. My next question would be, what's one golden rule you'd have for raising emotionally healthy children?
I think listening is a very good skill. And if there is someone who's emotionally disturbed, and if you can just hear him or her out, what is bothering him, why he wants to cry, why she wants to cry, what is she looking for, I think you've won the trust. You've at least done the first aid to the psychological wounds, and then only you will be able to look deep into the client to see what is really bothering him.
Yes, ma'am. Sometimes it is just as simple as to listen to the person, hear their problems out.
And who better to listen to than our very own parents? Parenting with the digital age comes with its own set of challenges. From your experience, ma'am, what's the most common mistakes parents make when it comes to managing their child's screen time and online exposure?
Well, I think parents are parents in that word, that they are older, they are more skilled, more knowledgeable, more clever. They think it's all that, but it's not true. I think parents are the youngest children of the family because their idealism is unrealistic, their rules are unrealistic, and they try to govern their child, but they don't try to be together with the child. They don't like to accommodate themselves with the child and the child's needs, the child's wishes, dreams, so many things, the child's own social world, the dream world and the social world, I think, is important to understand of a child.
That's an interesting point, ma'am.
All right. So I think we discussed how parents don't really deal with their children as from a place of emotional maturity. So I think the terms discipline and punishment, they're used almost interchangeably every single time, while they have very different connotations. So I think punishment is generally more negative. So what are your opinions on this, and how should parents actually deal with issues arising in children?
I think parenting should be in a negotiable mode of conduct. And I think it should not be all or none. It's going to be what I say and not what you say. That should not be the quote and the message of the day at all with children. I think children are much ahead of us, no matter what generation you take. I think parents would be beautiful parents, and they would create a very positive child and not a negative child. When you see that children are unnecessarily aggressive, violent, it could be that they are carrying some frustration which is unheard and unspoken both ways. And so they are, boiling inside of them, and they take it out in school or in the classroom or in the playground or on the road when you have these adolescent road rages these days, when you have under 18 drunken driving, and so many things that you read every day in the newspaper, the car accidents, the motorcycle or the motorbike accidents. It's getting bad to worse. I think parents are themselves role models for their children, and I see many parents, both father and mother, very aggressive in their language, in their actions. Since you are talking about punishment, and I know that a mother was beating off her child because he had stolen the mother's money and bought 3 extra ice creams, and the mother broke a vertebra of the spinal cord of the child because she beat him so hard. And I don't think it's going to heal mentally, because she's created that distance. She's also taught him that this is a mode of punishment which you can use when you are that frustrated.
Carry it forward.
Absolutely. Parents are role models for their children.
Aside from parents, grandparents play such an important role in the child's well being. How do you see their influence shaping a child's mental health and emotional development in today's age?
That's a good question, and especially in our country like India, where there is a very strong existence of joint families, and there are generations living together. And we find that when the grandparents, particularly the paternal grandparents, are there, and they find that they are now getting less attention even from their grandchildren, which they would have loved to have more, when the, say, Gen X or Gen Z that you are talking about is more technology bound and more into their own inner selves. Also, the school curriculum keeps them so busy that they hardly get time to sit with the grandparents. The grandparents feel very frustrated and neglected. When they have these children, they have working parents, both of them are working. The time automatically gets reduced, whether it is being spent on children or whether it is being spent on the grandparents. So I look at the frustration level of the grandparents also. But if the grandparents' personality is not understood, and the children come to me and say, our grandparents are always criticizing us, and more so our mother, then we don't like it. And the children very often say, I have the right to criticize my mother, but grandma doesn't have the right to criticize my mother. And I would say, who gave you that right, and who gave that right to grandma? And have you asked your mother, is this right what grandma says, and all that? Now that might create chaos, but it also generates self-thought in the child at least. Instead of forming opinions from grandma's connotations, whatever she's talking about, I think he gets some food for his own thoughts, where critical thinking can be developed and be addressed also. But I know you're going to say then everybody needs counseling. I say yes, everybody needs counseling. So I say that grandparents also need counseling because a large part of their daily routine is spent with the children, especially with those children whose both the parents are working. And those children get very little time to enjoy or to grasp parenting skills. So I think grandparents have a very nice way of being patient with the child. If their frustrations are sorted out, they can explain the realities around them and the society and the importance of looking at right things on your technology than to be looking at websites which are damaging him in terms of, say, hypersexuality or kite flying or gaming, where they start indulging in money grabbing, I would call it, rather than money earning at a very young age. These problems can be sorted out through grandparents. So grandparents, when they are in a family, blessed are the children, provided provided the grandparents go through counseling and therapy.
Absolutely, ma'am. I've been fortunate to have great grandparents, and they played a huge role in raising me. So I think it's really true that if grandparents are
Positive.
if grandparents are generally more positive, and if they're really taught how to deal with children and not misplace their frustration, they can be great influences in raising children. Now, parenting is a very complex phenomenon, and it's very hard to judge whether someone has been a good parent or not. So people use several criteria. They use marks, sometimes they use the mannerisms a child has. But what do you think is the most fundamental criteria for judging a person's parenting capability? What values or what?
I think for me, it is very important just to observe a person, how much of resilience and how much of EQ he has within him. See, you are born with an IQ, and you're blessed if your IQ is normal, balanced, or a little above +1 SD, standard deviation, right? Showing, guiding, and spacing and shaping a personality towards normalcy. I think for me, EQ is very important. I have had in my life genius people in my family, both with my parents as well as with my in-laws, but I always felt it was so very important to have an EQ rather than a high IQ, you know. And I think if you have a balanced IQ, your children are bound to see you work from the image they have of you and to deal and communicate with their peers, with their office people, with their corporates, with their future, with their career, if they have had good EQ seniors around them. That is roles and, modeling around them.
Right, so it's mostly how emotionally mature the child is that shows how good the parenting was. Is
I wonder if it's good parenting, but I say how matured the parenting has been, how liberal the parenting has been. That is very important for me. Supposing you have a very highly placed scientist in your family as your dad, your father, right? And he suffers from a paranoid disorder and wants to have his feelings of grandiosity and then be that I'm always right, you're always wrong, and looks down upon his wife and you, that means your mother and you. I don't think you can adapt a normal behavior if that be your environment. It will damage you somewhere or the other, either with a genetic endowment or always being in stress in the family. Now, what is dad going to scream at? So that tension, that worry, you know, Or maybe you've learnt it from him that men are always right. You've overgeneralized it, you know. It's not necessary what I'm saying is going to happen, but it is a possibility.
I think what mom just mentioned about observational learning was very important. And moving on from that, mom, could you share a childhood memory or a turning point in your life that really shaped you as a psychologist or as a human being?
Oh God, I've said it so many times. Uh, I was 8 years old, and there was a 32-year-old man standing in the bylane towards the backyard of our house. And he was standing with his legs apart, and which we call a catatonic stupor, and he was gazing at the sun without blinking an eye. And there were kids around the street that would try to shake him, make fun of him, because he would soil his clothes, he would not move, he would stink a lot, and they would throw stones and things like that. So this would have been about 1951, 52, somewhere there. And so I'm very touchy, I'm very sensitive. I cannot hurt anybody like that, neither can I see anybody get hurt. So I came crying back home, and I asked my dad, why do people make fun of him? Who is he? And why does he not want to move? And he's thinking a lot. And my father said, well, he suffers from catatonic schizophrenia. And I said, what is that? And he said, it's some kind of a mental disability, and you need a psychiatrist to medicate him. He never knew about psychologists, my father. So I was immature. I said, Dad, when I grow up, I will heal him. And little knowing that he's 32 and I am 8, where am I going to be and where is he going to be when I qualify? And I also asked my father that if I have pneumonia, why don't other children make fun of me? Why don't they hit me? He says, because whatever you have can be seen in an X-ray. And so we have proof that you're unwell. But if you look at him in that time, in those times, you couldn't make out what's wrong with him. And that's when I said, Dad, I will look after him when I grow up. I don't know where he is. Who I'm talking about is all in my mind. But since then, I have been wanting to heal people, soothe people from their conflicts, from their traumas. I have always been like that. The only difference was there was a period of depression because nobody knew what was clinical psychology. And everybody knew that there was something known as psychiatry. And in order to be a psychiatrist, you have to be a medical doctor. And I didn't know science and maths either. So I had to drop that and come to humanities. And when my mother went for her heart checkups and all abroad, then one American cardiologist, she made him make a trunk call and made him talk to me. And he said, why are you sad? You don't have to be a psychiatrist to heal, be a clinical psychologist. And that brought back hope in me that I could do a lot without doing maths and science. I think that was the turning point of my life when that cardiologist rang me up and said that there was a lot that you can do.
Ma'am, that's a beautiful story. Your anecdotes are absolutely beautiful. They really touch my heart. And now, ma'am, for our fun segment, this or that, you'll have to choose between two options quickly, just in 1 second. Okay, let's go. Mind or heart?
Heart and mind.
Talk therapy or journaling?
Journaling first, therapy later.
Empathy or logic?
Empathy.
Childhood memories or adult experiences?
Reflection or action?
Reflection.
The conscious mind or the unconscious mind?
Conscious mind, if I am there, someone has to help me reach my unconscious mind.
fixed mindset or growth mindset?
Growth minds.
Mental health prevention or intervention?
Both prevention and intervention go together. You can't talk of intervention without prevention,
Yes, ma'am.
and vice versa.
Last but not the least, id or superego?
I think that it's ego and healing the ego and not the superego or the id. Id is beautiful and superego keeps the ego intact.
Balance.
And I think a balance of all the three makes a human mind very lovely.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insights, stories, and wisdom with us today. Let's keep the conversation about mental health roaring, shattering myths, breaking stigma, and normalizing the act of asking for help. Because at the end of the day,
It's okay to feel, okay to seek help, and it's okay to talk about it.
that is all for today. Stay tuned on Spotify and YouTube for more such exciting endeavors. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.